Hey folks, Ray from DCRainmaker.com here. Today I've got Garmin's newest wearable, the FENIX 5. Now of course this came out in early January at CES, that's when it was announced anyways, but it's just starting to ship here real shortly, and I've got with me now the final production models, from a hardware standpoint anyways, of the FENIX 5X, the 5, and the 5S. It comes in 3 different models, and there are some slight differences between those models around battery life, for example. The 5X has mapping, and of course they're different in size, which we'll talk about in a minute as well. For all of your FENIX kind of understanding all the basics and how it works and all the features of it, I've got an entire video dedicated to that up there. It's super detailed, talks about all the features, the differences, why you might want one versus the other, what's new on this compared to the FENIX 3. All that jazz is up there. There's also a separate video I shot also up there on the menu. So if you want to walk through the whole menu system, kind of understanding what things look like, the screens and all that stuff, it's basically like 15 minutes of me walking through the menu. So it's you can geek out on that. But this is all about unboxing. Now, as you see, there are 3 different versions here. In reality, there's something like 13 to 15 versions of the FENIX 5. So this is just the 3 core versions, the 5, the 5S, and the 5X. All those versions account for different band variants, and I'll talk about that a little bit later on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to box each one of these separately, and I'll put the timings right here on the screen, so maybe it's there, so you can go ahead and basically skip to whatever section you want for which device you have. And then at the end of that, I'm going to do some size comparison stuff and weight comparisons, so you can check that out as well. But we'll simply start off here with the FENIX 5S, and that's this one right there. And the reason I'm starting off with that is that's simply the smallest one. So, you know, smallest, middle, and the largest units, so we'll just kind of walk through them. They will, of course, probably be pretty similar in packaging. I'll note a couple minor things along the way as well, but we'll start here. So I'll put those off to the side for right now. And here we are with the FENIX 5S. Now the 5S was designed to be for smaller wrists. The S doesn't really stand for anything in particular. I guess small at best, but that is kind of where things are. So right here I've got, so this exact version is the Sapphire Edition with the champagne and gray suede band. So we'll talk about that in a second, the bands, but here is the unit right there. So it sits inside this little square box. I can go and take this out. Got the watch there. Inside here we have some, looks like some more accessory paper type stuff. So put those off to the side there, put that there, and then right now inside this first box is the charging cable, and there's nothing else inside of that, so we can put that back here in the other box. There we go. Maybe this way, ta-da. And then on this side we have the manual. That's the quick start guide, and this is more of the safety guide by the looks of things. So those 2 pieces of information there, and that is it. Now it said here this was the champagne with the gray suede band. I believe what they've done is they've sent me those bands separately. They're not in these particular boxes. So I'm going to pick out what I think is a gray suede band, and it's definitely this one right here. I've got a whole pile of bands I'll talk about in a minute. And so that is supposed to be inside this. Now there are different versions of the 5, the 5S, etc. One with sapphire glass and one without sapphire glass. This one has sapphire glass there. Sapphire glass is designed to reduce scratches, not so much breakage. So if I take this and like whack a hammer on it, it's not necessarily going to help against that. But it's going to help against me taking this and scratching up against this edge right there, that kind of stuff. Personally, I'm not a huge sapphire glass person. I think it's fine, but I think in most cases when you whack something hard enough, you're going to whack it to get a scratch either way. But there is a difference between these units from a functionality standpoint in that the sapphire glass editions include Wi-Fi, whereas the other ones don't. The reason you might want Wi-Fi in this is to sync your activities afterwards, and that's more or less actually all it's used for. It's to sync activity data as well as to download firmware updates, but it's not to go ahead and do any other sort of communication on it. You're not going to browse the web on this thing. So it's purely for syncing workouts. You still have Bluetooth Smart and you still have USB on the back, so you can do that that way as well. But if you want to just walk into your house and have it automatically do something without any other phone nearby, that's what it's for. So here's the gray suede band that is included in some editions. Again, look at the fine print on your box. Here is the charging cable. So the charging cable is different in the FENIX 5 series than it is in the past. It goes to a smaller locked system right there, and that's both good and bad. It's good and that's super secure, and Garmin says that their plan going forward is this charging cable to be the same for all Garmin wearables, period, end of story, that's it. Hopefully that's the case. Right now each wearable is different. The downside though is that when you put it in like this, so it simply snaps in place just like that, it makes it so you can't wear the watch while you're charging it. Now you can still charge it though at the same time, and this matters for people like ultra runners and stuff like that are going out and going longer in the battery life of these given devices, but it is a bit of a bummer. I shot a video a couple weeks ago that shows me in this and using it as a lasso, like swirling around to show the strength of it. That's up there as well, so check that out, and I'll talk much more about the battery and all that kind of stuff with this. So anyways, we have that out of the way of this. There we go. Manual, it's just simply kind of the basics here, the buttons. The bands, for example, are these new quick fit bands, what Garmin calls them, which means that if I go ahead and just kind of separate this real quick here, what it allows you to do is to simply pull in, this is kind of brand new, it's a bit snugger right now, and then pop it off really quick. So that means I can, as I drop that stuff over the edge, take this suede band here, this fancy suede band, and there we go, over the edge. I can swap this super quick. So just to demonstrate this, you have right now this kind of rubbery silicone band that's good for sport activity. And I can simply do this, pop off that, pop off this, put on this, and this, and now I'm ready to roll. That quick and simple. Versus the past, you do the pins and the screws, and you really just got sick and tired of it halfway through the first pin. So this was super quick and easy. Once I get, there we go, looking at the unit as opposed to at the camera. And then the same thing on this side here. I can pop it back on. And this is pretty secure. I haven't seen any problems in the couple months I've been using it, swimming or anything like that. And partly because the snap that you have to pull down is on your wrist. So like while you're using it, you can't access that snap, which is by design, of course. So it seems pretty secure. Like anything, it'll take a year or two till we find out if this is as secure as they say it is, but I don't expect any problems. We'll see. Anyways, that is the FENIX 5S. So it's a smaller design. It's roughly the same size and width, almost exactly the same size and width as the Forerunner 735 XT, that triathlon focused watch. So if you're familiar with that, it's very similar. We'll talk about size though in a minute, so hang tight. Okay, so this one, we are considering the 5S as done. I'm going to put that there. The suede bands, we'll put those off here for now. We'll leave this off to the side, that there. 5S. And done. Okay, so next we have the FENIX 5. This is the middle of the road option from a size standpoint. This is still smaller than the 5X, which is the same size as the FENIX 3 in the past. So this is where they started off from, same size as FENIX 3 3HR, got smaller yet. Functionality is identical between these two, with the exception of battery life, and then on this one it has the mapping. So opening up this version, to be precise here, is the Sapphire Edition black with black band. And as you can see, it's black. So I'm going to go pull this out there. You're going to see essentially the same exact pattern as we saw on the 5S. So I'm going to put those right there. This, and then there we go. Inside this first box here, if I can find a way into it, is the same manual as we saw before. So we have the 5 and the 5S manual, just going over the quick fit bands that we talked about earlier. And then on this box here, we have the charging cable, and we have this yellow band. And so each one of the Sapphire editions, generally speaking, comes with a secondary band that's designed to be like fancy or different or something opposite of what it is. And so again, you want to check the specs on which one of the 13 or 15 models you buy, but most of them come with a second band that's designed to pop on and off really quickly. So in this case, if we pop this off right there, put that out of the way, just going to kind of move some stuff here. There we go, our two manuals, this paper stuff, and there we go. So that's the 5 that we're talking about right now. There we go, so you can see the 5, manual, extra strap, charging cable. Again, opening this up here to look inside. There we go. So on this charging cable, as I mentioned in the first portion of the video, it is a new charging cable. It snaps in like this. It does not allow you to charge it on your wrist, and it's identical to the rest of them. And so, like I mentioned before, check the video up there for more information on the charging cable, a whole separate video on that just by itself. The quick fit bands work here as well, of course. They are a different size than the 5S. So each one of these had different size quick fit bands. And then these quick fit bands for the 5X over here actually do work on the Garmin FENIX 3 series. So that's pretty cool. So I can take this and let's see if I got this facing the right way. I mean, it doesn't really matter. Snap and snap, and now I've got this Bumblebee styled watch. And of course you can buy other bands for an incredibly expensive, like 49 bucks, which is ridiculous, but I guess that's how they make their money. So there we go, the bands. Again, I can pop this back on, super quick and easy, ready to roll. And there we have the 5 series. So I'll talk about size towards the end, but as you can see right there, 5, unboxed, ready to roll. Last but not least in the unboxing tray, we have the 5X. At this point, I want to make sure the camera is still rolling. Sweet, both of them are still rolling. Okay, 5X, here we go. This is Garmin's top-of-the-line wearable device, at least from a 5 series. I still have the Chronos, which is way more expensive at 1,500 bucks, but that actually lacks some of the features found here. The Chronos, by the way, did get a software update that now matches these units from a functionality standpoint, which is pretty darn cool, except for, of course, the mapping here, because mapping requires extra hardware, more storage in it, and also a slightly different optical heart rate sensor that I'll talk about in a minute as well, because that's obviously different hardware. So, 5X box. This is the Sapphire Edition with the gray-black band. Slate gray with black band, sorry. Inside here, there we go, that's the watch. You can definitely see those metal links there. And then we've got the 2 pieces, one there, and then second right here. And then move this out of the way. So, in here we have the manuals like before. There we go. So we have the 5X manual. Notice it's slightly bit different here, likely covering the mapping portions inside of this. Navigation, for example, mapping is all covered in there. And then we have the usual safety disclaimer, don't go kill yourself thing. And then inside this bucket or box, we've got the rubber band, silicone I think officially, and again, the charging cable. So, just in case you happen to skip to this section of the video, here we go. Open it up, charging cable. Take off the foam doohickey. Charging cable goes in just like all the rest of them. It's identical across the board. It snaps in place. Super secure. It's not going to fall off very easily. You can check out the video that I've said now for the 3rd time up in the corner there that talks to the charging cable in all of its prowess or not. From a design standpoint, this is in this plastic right there. So if I kind of remove this right now, oh man, it's separated for every single link. Oh, that's a pain in the butt. Things that are not exciting in an unboxing video. Okay, so got all that off. You're going to have to adjust this if you want to using a chain link tool to adjust this, or go to your nearest watch friend person. But this is the metal chains, but it's still quick release. So I can pop this off just like the other ones. There we go, off. And then now this one's going to pop off probably a little bit easier, maybe. There we go. It's definitely a bit snug. There's no doubt about that. This is all metal right there by the looks of it. Maybe it might be a bit of plastic, but it's definitely snug on the other ones. And of course, here's the extra band that I talked about before. This allows you to simply pop it on using that same quick fit system we've talked about. It makes it super quick and easy to move bands and swap between different bands. And now you have something that's a little more ideal for going out for a run or a swim or whatever you want than having this big heavy metal chain link on there. And then again, the design that you can simply pop this off and be ready to go within just a minute or two, as opposed to, not even a minute or two, just a couple seconds, as opposed to having to deal with swapping the pins on the bands and all that pain in the ass that it is. So there we go on these. Let's get this guy up here for you right there. Make sure these all line up nice and pretty. 5X, boom, 5X, and we're ready to roll. What I'm going to do from a comparison standpoint is I'm actually going to pop off this heavy metal band, because when I talk about weights and stuff like that, it's not quite going to make things even, and I want to just talk about the raw weight of these units themselves. So instead, I'm going to use the plastic bands right here, or sorry, the silicone bands. So I'm going to put this off the side, grab this, and now we're on the same playing field there, minus the sticker I put back on upside down. Now we are ready to talk weights and sizes. Boom! Scaleman is on. Scaleman is in grams, and he is ready to roll. So, starting off with the 5X, it's going to come in at 98 grams, as my scale catches up here. So 98 grams for him. We have then the 5 in the middle there, coming in at 88 grams. And then we have the 5S, the smallest of the 3, coming in at 68 grams. How nice, it works out pretty close. It's like I ate every single one. So moving these over here out of the way for the moment. There we go. let's talk about size for a second. So to put these right next to each other, it makes it really easy to see the differences. I'm going to line these up on the bottom so that you can kind of see as they get bigger and bigger for each one. So they're lined up on this bottom pin across the board. And you can see now very clearly this is very small and this is the same size as the FENIX 3 series. To demonstrate that, here is the FENIX 3 series. In particular, here is the FENIX 3 HR. This is the FENIX 3 without the HR. Same size bezel and all that jazz, just deeper bottom. And you can see the 5X and the 3, HR or 3, doesn't really matter, are identical in size, whereas this down here is very similar to the 735 or the 235, if you're familiar with those running focus watches. I can't figure out where the heck I put mine, but I found a 620, which is pretty darn similar in size as well. And you can see you're basically in that same ballpark right there. These are almost identical. In fact, this might even be a tiny bit bigger. So it's a very small watch. This did not have optical heart rate, whereas this does, as does this and this. Now this, of course, does with the older optical heart rate sensor. And that's something to keep in mind. Garmin has changed out the optical heart rate sensor, or updated rather, in these watches, and it's much, much thinner. And it's even thinner than a 735 that you may have seen in the past. That was also pretty thin. That came out a little under a year ago. And if you look at this, for example, it's kind of hard to tell from your camera angle or from rear angle. You can see it's almost flat. It's under a millimeter at best bump, whereas this is probably like 2.5, 3 millimeters of a bump. So super, super thin. So far, accuracy is looking pretty good for me in my testing, but we'll see how things shape up as we get the final software. And that is something to note, that these are final hardware, but not yet final software. Garmin's very close on that, and once they do, then they'll start shipping them off to the general public. But there you go from kind of a basic size standpoint. Just to compare it to some other watches on the market for fun, I'll put that off the side. We've got here the Suunto Spartan Ultra. So in this case, if I flip this over, what you'll see is that obviously it's quite a bit bigger than the 5S. It's definitely bigger than the 5. And then if I look here, it's about the same. I would say about the same as the 5X in terms of width. When it comes to depth, it's also, I would say it's a little bit thicker here. The other difference is that this is the chubbier on the edges there versus this cuts in. So yes, the absolute edge is wider on the absolute edge is probably the same on the two, but this is chubbier overall because it doesn't have like the curves of this, if that makes sense. And on the bottom, obviously, this does not have optical, and this does. There's a lot of folks that have tried or want to compare the 5 series to the Suunto Spartan Ultra. Yeah, I guess you can compare it there, but it's not really a fair comparison. And it's really no different than saying, why don't you compare this to, I don't know, the 620, right? I mean, this is a 2.5-year-old or something like that. Maybe it's 2 or something. It's an older watch. Functionality-wise, though, this has more than this does today, for the most part. I mean, this has some very basic navigation in it. This doesn't, but it has a lot more structure, interval workouts, and all that kind of stuff that this doesn't. So, I mean, you could argue these two are pretty similar as well. So I don't really know. It's kind of, you sit there and go, that was really loud, sorry. You sit there and say, yes, these are designed for the same core market, but if they're not functionality similar, are they really competing? And I don't know the answer to that. And then, of course, to compare two kind of randomly non-relevant things, just for fun, because I know people ask, Apple Watch comparison, just to show you how small this is, the 38 mil edition, the 42 I don't have handy at the moment, but you can see it's certainly smaller than this. This has an optical sensor, of course, but this battery life lasts 5 to 7 hours in GPS on time, or just over a day in regular non-GPS time. Your battery life here is over 10 hours, all the way up to 20 plus hours, and 50, 60 hours in ultra track mode. This just simply can't do that. In fact, it could even last that long just in standby mode. So it's a different type of market, though, which is fine. And then you have the Android Wear Polar M600. Again, similar in terms of third-party apps and stuff like that you have here. But of course, you do have Connect IQ apps across the Garmin lineup. A different market, in my opinion, than these. Just to show you the size comparisons of the 5, this is different in terms of width, and one's bigger one way, one's bigger the other way. Depth, they're actually pretty darn similar, and both of them do have the optical heart rate sensor on the back. Okay, so last but not least, let's talk about some bands. So, as I mentioned, Garmin has a crap ton of bands out there today, depending on what you're looking for. So they have these, like this is a suede band that came with this guy over here, and this is the yellow band. These are all 5 S bands by the size of them. You can see how small they are. In fact, all these look like they're 5S bands. You would see, just to show you the difference in size, if I pop this off the 5X and try to put on one of these ones on the 5S, it technically fits, just in case you're wondering, but you can see it would slide back and forth, so it's not really ideal. The cool part, though, is if you want to buy these quick, whatever they're called, bands, they do have them for the FENIX 3 and 3HR series. Just simply buy the ones that are labeled 5X, which is the larger unit that I just decapitated right here. So those work just fine. Okay, I think this is a good place to end this video at this point. We've unboxed all three of these. We've talked about sizes. We've done some comparisons. This is the FENIX lineup as you see it going forward. Expect, of course, over time for them to add more accessory straps. Garmin always does that. You know, typically they do that like 9 months to 12 months after release, generally speaking. It's a way to like invigorate the line. So I expect by next fall sometime we'll see more options in this lineup. I also expect that Garmin will probably add more variants of the 5 series longer term. They've always done that. They've reused watches across the aviation and the marine segments, for example, golf, all the different segments of Garmin's larger business line reuse the same hardware design. So expect that to continue as well. I don't have any idea when that's going to be, but just things kind of long-term type stuff that you usually see. Thanks for watching. Go and whack that like button down below as well as the subscribe button. Also, check out the full FENIX 5 playlist I've got over there. I'm going to be adding plenty more videos to that over the next few weeks and months, but especially the next few weeks as Garmin gets closer to making these available to the general public. And then don't forget to hit the subscribe button down at the bottom. That way you get notified as soon as new videos come out. Have a good one.